Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. What if adult Naruto ruled Paradise Island, where Tsunade, Mei, Temari, Hinata, Anko, and more became his queens? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Endless fights came to Naruto on the battlefield of the Fourth Shinobi War. His clothes were cut and blood-stricken, but though all the sweat and bloodshed, he defeated his enemies and became a hero. Many people of all nations cheered his name for bringing peace across the elemental nations, and his title was spread across the entire world like a wildfire, in every far reach and corner, reaching places he had never been to before. On the opposite side of the globe, a woman received word about the young man. She immediately took a liking to the hero and wanted to meet him. She immediately sent her assistant to meet the man and see if these stories were true about him. Back with Naruto, days passed and the hero returned to his home, quickly enjoying his free time. One day a courier came by and gave him a note which read that someone named Nikki was coming to talk to him about a vacation. It was currently late in the afternoon, the sun was shining bright and Naruto was training outside the wall of Konoha right in the middle of a lush forest. While he was working on some of his jutsus, in Konoha a woman was currently looking for him. In the middle of Konoha in the merchants district, a woman with bleached blonde hair, styled in a short straight crop and a busty body walked through the busy streets. The woman's name was Nikki and she was far from home, foreign to the foods and merchandise around her. She was also not alone, with a purple-haired woman next to her who also shared a curvaceous body. The women were sent looking for none other than Naruto Uzumaki, asking everyone in the vicinity where Mr. Uzumaki is. They talked with countless people, receiving no answer, until they asked a merchant and he explained to them the blonde trained in the forest every day. With this information they left the village, walking out towards the forest. Moments later, after a long stroll, in a clearing the two found a young man training, doing one-armed push-ups with his shirt off. Both women stopped and admired the young man. They couldn't help but admire the young man's body as sweat rolled down his muscular chest, making it hard to look anywhere other than him. Finding themselves lost in thought, quickly they cleared their head, knowing they had a job and knew to see it done. Naruto? Nikki asked while walking closer to the blonde. Hearing his name, Naruto stopped his training and looked over to see two gorgeous women walking towards him. One woman was wearing a flashy blue miniskirt and tube top, revealing her toned body and curvaceous curves, while the other beside her had purple hair and a strange-looking black suit that also revealed a plentiful bosom. He was in awe by the two lovely ladies. "Yes," he answered while pushing himself up off the ground, standing up on his 2 feet, exposing his muscular body to the women. "Hello Mr. Uzumaki, I've heard so much about you. I'm Nikki and this is Ayane. We have been looking for you for quite some time," she explained. "Hello Nikki. Ayane. What do you need?" Naruto asked while kneeling down to grab a black t-shirt, pulling it above his head and covered his exposed body. "Well, we have traveled a long distance to tell you that my boss Helena would like to extend her gratitude and have you come to an all-expensive paid vacation to her island. She would also like to talk to you about the deed for her island," she explained with a bright smile. Naruto looked at her with a blank expression. He had no idea what she was speaking of. "An island?" he asked. "Yes, this might come as a shock to you. Helena, our current owner, has chosen to give up her island and give it to you," Nikki explained as she walked over to Naruto and handed him a document. Naruto looked down at the document in her hand and had one question on his mind. "Why me? We've never even met," he asked. Nikki thought he would have many questions. She assumed anyone would. Even she was rather surprised to hear her boss wanted to give her island away. "This might come as a shock, but once she heard about you and how you fought bravely in the face of Armageddon, she knew you were truly the right choice for owning her island. She couldn't believe what she heard about you and sent me to investigate, and what I've heard around town, it is most certainly true," Nikki answered, again smiling. "So you're telling me some woman who I've never met is giving me her island?" Naruto asked. "That is correct. I know it seems crazy, but the owner works in mysterious ways. If you're not sure, why not come and visit the island, take a look around. I can assure you won't regret it," Nikki said, holding a paper to Naruto. Naruto had his suspicions but felt to take a chance. He grabbed the paper and quickly looked over the document, his eyes skimming, looking for anything unusual. Once he read it, there was something about the island being a place for women from tournaments to visit. "Nikki, what is this about the women and tournaments?" he asked. "Well, that is why I came here and need you right now, because women from across tournaments come to visit the island and enjoy their time as a paradise." "So the island is filled with women?" he asked. "Yup, and only women. You will be the first male ever to set foot on this island other than a previous owner," she explained. "This place just sounds better and better." Naruto had his suspicions, thinking this all seemed too far-fetched, but felt like taking a chance. "Alright, a vacation would be nice." "Okay, great. Pack anything you need and meet me back here in a week once everything is ready. Another thing, Helena was clear, if you want to bring friends you cannot until after your initial visit, and also only women. She was very clear on that. She would also like to meet you personally," she explained, and Naruto nodded. "Alright, I will be back in a week," Nikki said with her bright smile and turned around. "I will see you there, Naruto," Ayane said in a seductive tone. She turned around and left with the other woman. Once the two were gone, Naruto thought that was strange but left his training ground and walked home to get ready, packing everything he had. A week later, in that time Naruto had everything ready. He told everyone he would be leaving for a couple of days. On the 7th day he left his apartment and headed back to his training area with a backpack filled with his things. He walked through the village and out into the forest, back to his training ground. Once he walked past some trees blocking his view, he laid his eyes on a large helicopter and Nikki standing at a set of stairs leading up into the vehicle with a different set of clothes on. She was now wearing a blue string bikini and short shorts with a bright smile on her face. "Come on," she yelled out towards the blonde. Naruto walked up to the vehicle and stopped in front of the stairs. "Well, what are you waiting for? Come on," she stated from top of the stairs. He walked up the steps into the helicopter. Once inside, he immediately laid eyes upon a large room. "It will be a lengthy trip, so we have everything ready for you." Naruto sat down ready for the trip. Light pilots were ready, Nikki stated as she walked to the and took a seat as the co-pilot. The pilot quickly turned several switches and pulled back, lifting the helicopter up into the air, then leaned forward, soaring through the clear sky towards the destination. Hours later they flew for what seemed like forever, passing many islands and clear ocean blue water. Naruto looked out a window to see a large beautiful island. It was enormous, exotic trees, sandy beaches and buildings covered the land. The pilot slowly descended down, the helicopter gently landing on a helipad on a stone dock. Quickly the pilot turned a couple of switches, truing off the engine and opened the door. Once the engine was off and the door was open, Nikki stood up. "Please follow me, Naruto," she said. Naruto stood up and followed her out of the helicopter. Once he reached the door, the ocean breeze and smell immediately wafted into his senses. The whole place was a paradise, warm air, bright ocean water. "So here we are," Nikki exclaimed with a smile. "You have a lot to see," she stated. "I'm right behind you," Naruto said and followed her down the stone dock, looking over to see sandy beaches. As he looked over, he saw several women in bikinis playing volleyball. They stopped playing once they noticed Naruto and looked over at the blonde with bright smiles. "You already have quite a big following, Naruto," Nikki stated with a smile. They continued walking past a beach up into a path through a tropical forest. "This is one of 2 forests on the island," Nikki explained, looking back at Naruto. They walked for a while through the forest, the greenery blocking the view on either side. Once they pasted some trees, a large mansion came into full view. It was 5 stories high. He had never seen a place as big as this, and they walked through the front door. Once there, Nikki stopped and opened her arms with a big smile. "Well, this is it, Naruto. What do y'all think? This place is stunning." "Great, I'm glad," she said with flair. As the two stood in the lobby, someone entered the door behind them. "Hey Nikki," a woman said, leaning on the front door. Naruto turned around, laying his eyes on a gorgeous woman in nothing but a string bikini. She was dark-skinned with a curvaceous body, brown eyes, full lips and brunette hair, which is cut short. "Oh Lisa, it's you." "Lisa, Naruto." "Naruto, Lisa," she explained. "Lisa will show you around, Naruto, and I will take your bag to your room." "It's nice to meet you, Naruto," she said as she walked forward. A smile formed on her face. "Yay, it's nice to meet you too," he replied. Lisa blushed as she looked over the young stud. He had a muscular body with charming good looks. She had never seen someone so good-looking. "Okay, you two, I have to go, lots to do," Nikki stated, leaving the young blonde and the luchador. She took his backpack and left the lobby. "Well, shall we get started with the tour of the island?" Lisa asked. "Sure," he replied. "Okay, you two, I have to go, lots to do," Nikki stated, leaving the young blonde and the luchador. She took his backpack and left the lobby. "Well, shall we get started with the tour of the island?" Lisa asked. "Sure," he replied. "Please follow me." Lisa turned around and led the way, walking back out of the mansion into the ocean air, Naruto following right behind her. "It's nice to finally meet you, Naruto, the man who defeated hundreds of enemies by himself and saved a nation from destruction," she said. "You've heard of me?" he asked, the two now next to each other walking down the dirt path, the lush palm trees on either side of them. "Of course, every woman on this island has heard of you. The world knows you. You're a hero," she explained with a smile. "I didn't know so many people knew me. I've never been outside the elemental nations," he explained. "Really? Well, this is the only place you will ever have to be, filled with so much beauty." The two walked for a while further into the forest. Off in the distance, Naruto could see a small stone building with windows covering the exterior, surrounded by trees. "We are close to the shop," Lisa said. They quickly arrived at the small building, walking up some stone stairs, reaching the doors. "This is where you can get all the things you need," Lisa stated, and they opened the doors. Walking inside, Naruto was greeted with the sight of all different kinds of bikinis hung up, in all different colors and types. Looking forward, he saw a beautiful woman standing behind a counter with a smile. "Hey Hitomi," Lisa said. "Hey Lisa," she replied with a bright smile. "Naruto, this is Hitomi, she works here from time to time," Lisa stated. Hitomi had shoulder-length brunette hair, which was styled with long straight bangs and a pink headband. She was wearing a tiny two-piece blue bikini, displaying her curvaceous body, her massive popping out. "It's nice to finally meet you, Naruto," she said with a smile. "It's nice to meet you too," he replied. Hitomi looked over Naruto, seeing his strong body and that he was wearing a shirt and pants, surprised he wasn't sweating from the insane heat. "Naruto, you should get rid of those clothes, you must be dying in this heat." "Here." Hitomi leaned under her counter and grabbed a box from under the counter and brought it up, placing it down. "For the new owner," she stated with a smile. Naruto walked up to the counter and looked inside the box, taking a pair of black swim trunks from it. "Thanks," he said. "You're welcome. There's a changing room to the right," Hitomi stated and pointed over to a room with a smile. He took the pair of swim trunks and walked over into a changing room, closing the door behind him. He pulled his shirt up over his head and pulled off his pants and ditched his clothes, pulling on the swim trunks. With the new wear, he walked out, feeling much better without all the cloth covering his skin. Once he walked out of the room, Lisa looked over and blushed yet again, now seeing the young teenager's strong chiseled muscles and six-pack. Looking further down his body, she saw a long and huge bulge running down the side of his swim trunks, making her face turn bright red. Naruto looked at Lisa, noticing her face was bright red. "Are you all right, Lisa?" Naruto asked. I'm fine," she quickly responded, turning away from the blonde. "Is that his?" she thought. Quickly regaining her composure, she turned back, facing him. "You must feel much better now in this hot climate," Lisa stated. "Yay, much better, Thanks again, Hitomi. I need to repay you, he said. Oh, that's okay, Hitomi said with a smile and blushed cheeks as she looked him over. The two then left. I'll see you around, Naruto, Hitomi said. Yeah, I'll be back, Naruto responded. They opened the doors and left the shop. Once outside, Naruto stretched his arms and took in the fresh air. Feeling the sun against his body and his toes on the ground, he felt much better. As he did this, Lisa watched his body and then the two continued walking. This forest is filled with a few good places to spar and relax. Maybe later I can see how powerful you are as in a spar, she stated with a smile. I could show you a move or two, he replied. Could you? She asked in a seductive tone. The two walked through the forest until they reached a sandy beach on the other side, the bright blue ocean water crashing against the sand. This is one of 3 beaches on the island. This where most of the women play volleyball, Lisa stated, and they began walking down the beach. As Naruto looked around, off in the distance he was greeted with the sight of a beautiful woman in nothing but a tiny bikini, walking near the crystal blue water. She had platinum blonde hair and a curvaceous and buxom figure. She was wearing a skin-tight black bikini that revealed much of her skin. This was truly paradise. Everywhere he looked, beautiful woman. The girl looked over. Once she saw Naruto, she had bright smile on her face. She walked towards Naruto, a sway in her hips, until she reached them. Hello, Lisa, the woman said. Rachel, Lisa replied. You must be Naruto. I'm Rachel. I have heard many things about you. It's nice to meet you, Rachel, he replied. So, what are you two doing? Rachel asked. I'm showing Naruto the island, Lisa answered. Hope you two have fun. Rachel walked up to Naruto. I'm at your service, Naruto, whenever you need it, she said in a sedative tone and gave him a wink. Without another word she left, walking off the beach. Naruto watched her walk away. Many girls have been talking about you. You're the first man to ever set foot on this island, Lisa stated. Really? He asked. Oh yay, Naruto, everyone wants to meet you, she said as the two began walking along the beach and reached another path back through another lush forest. The two walked until they arrived at a large pool. Reaching the pool, they stopped, several tables surrounding it with a mini bar. I haven't had a good swim in a while, care to join me, Naruto? She asked. Sure. Naruto followed her. Reaching the edge, she walked into the pool. Naruto walked up to the pool and dived into it, feeling the nice cool water. It had been a while since he had been in a pool. The two swam together. Lisa swam up to Naruto and pressed her body against him, her against his chest with a smile. The water feels nice, she said. Yay, it does, he replied, looking at the beautiful woman before him. After all this time, it's nice to finally be with such a strong young stud, she stated, slowly rubbing her hands down his arms and gave him a wink. Naruto watched as she slowly swam back to the edge of the pool and stepped out, the water dripping down her smooth body, ever so slowly. Naruto followed her and walked up out of the pool. Lisa watched water drip down from Naruto's muscles. She could feel herself getting warm and craving the young blonde. It was becoming unbearable. That felt good, Lisa said and gave him a towel. He quickly cleaned himself off. So tell me, Naruto, there are so many rumors the girls say about you, like you can create clones. There is so little I know about you. Would you care to tell me? She asked. I think if I told you, you wouldn't believe me, he replied. Try me. Okay. Well, I grew up an orphan in Konoha village. Naruto started to explain many things about himself to Lisa and how he got to where he is. Lisa was surprised to find out what the young blonde had seen. I never would believe someone could go through all that pain, she stated. Tell me about you. What do you do before coming here? He asked. I've never told anyone about myself before, but when I'm around you it feels like I can't explain it. Where to begin? I was also an orphan and grew up in a city. At a young age I dreamed to become the best fighter and win the Dead or Alive tournament. I trained hard every day and became a luchador. Then I had my chance and entered the Dead or Alive tournament, a fierce competition. Sadly, I lost and then I came here and worked as an assistant on this island, she explained with a smile. I've never heard of the Dead or Alive tournament, Naruto stated. You haven't. Many of the women on this island were in it. So Naruto, what do you think about the island so far? She asked. It's stunning, the whole place is great and the women are beautiful, he answered. You find me attractive? She asked. You're drop-dead gorgeous, he stated, causing Lisa to blush. Thank you. You know, you are the hottest stud I've ever met, she said with a smile. They left the pool walking down a stone path. Some small buildings in the distance. They continued until they were on the other side of the island, stopping before a large building with bright lights. This is the casino. Lisa explained. There's a casino on the island? He asked. Of course. Lisa said sarcastically. They walked forward and opened the golden doors and entered. Upon entering, Naruto saw the flashing lights on lines of slot machines and several poker tables with decks of cards. The casino was rather large with several rooms. I'm not a big gambler, but it's what some of the women want, Lisa stated as they walked to the other side of the casino, reaching a door covered by beads. This is the private room where women dance, Lisa said and opened the door. Naruto walked inside the room, immediately seeing a single pole on a large center stage. There were lights dimmed down with several different colors. They left the room and stopped in the lobby of the casino. And that's it, Naruto, that's the island. They left the casino, walking back out the front doors. Once outside, it was dark and the bright stars filled the sky. Come on, Naruto, I know a great place to look at the stars. Lisa grabbed Naruto's hand and they left the casino, walking through a thick and lush forest, hands still tangled with each other. Walking past several trees, they stopped before a tall red lighthouse. Come on. Lisa opened the door and they walked up the steps until they reached the top, walking out into the air. They stood on the edge, looking up. Naruto never saw such beauty in the stars and the waves crashing into the sand. Naruto could see half of the island from this elevation. I come here for the view, it's nice to share it with someone for once. I'm glad I got to spend the day with you, Naruto, Lisa said with a smile. I am too. The two looked at each other and Lisa simply smiled. They looked at each other and slowly leaned forward, their hot breath against each other's lips. Their lips met, sharing an electric kiss, pushing their tongue into the other's mouth. The two continued kissing, neither wanting to stop until they needed to breath, slowly leaning back, still staring into the other's eyes. Come on, let's get back to the mansion. The two left the lighthouse, walking back through the forest, quickly arriving back at the large mansion. Once they arrived, Naruto was surprised how much there was on the island and how many beautiful women there were. Once arriving, he saw Nikki sitting at a desk in the lobby. Hi Naruto. So what did you think? She asked. This place is astonishing, he responded. Great, I'm glad. Helena will be arriving here tomorrow. She would like to see you tomorrow, and I put your backpack in your room. Your room is on the top floor to the left. Alright, thanks. I'll come with you, Naruto, Lisa said, and they walked up the stairs until they reached the top floor. Lisa walked up to him. Naruto, before I go. Lisa leaned towards him and gave him a soft kiss on his lips, then leaned back. Meet me at my room, she said in a seductive tone while giving him note with her room number, and then turned around, walking away, swaying her hips for him to see. He watched her walk away, her bouncing with each step. Once she was gone, he looked down and saw the room number. He then turned around and opened his door, being greeted to a massive room with a large TV and counter. Looking around, he saw several doors leading to other rooms, surprised how large his room was. He opened one of the doors, finding a master bedroom, everything looking expensive. He found his backpack on a counter. Moments later, Naruto left his room and walked down the hallway, finding Lisa's door. He knocked on the wooden door and it was opened in a second. Naruto looked inside and saw Lisa standing before him, completely with a smile on her face. Naruto looked her over head to toe, her massive perky before him. She slowly walked forward, her hips swaying. She then yanked him into her room. So do you like what you see? I need to give my new owner and lover a good welcome. She leaned forward, pressing her lips to his. As their lips met, an electric charge shot through Lisa's body. She then leaned forward to his ear. You may do anything to me, she whispered into his ear. Naruto stood in awe of the beauty before him. Her body complete bare before him. Every part of her was better than the last. She gently swayed her hips as she walked up to Naruto, turning around and pressed her body against him. His hands leaned up, grabbing the pair of massive tits, groping them, making Lisa moan. His hands continued massaging her awesome. He then moved his hands down her body. Yay, you like my body, don't you? She cooed as Naruto's hands traveled all over the luchador. As his hands traveled down, he grabbed her butt. Naruto fondled Lisa's tits. He leaned forward, their lips meeting. Her lips were wet and nice. I saw the outline of your, and I wanted to see what the famous Naruto had down under his swim trunks. Without further explanation, she pushed him over to a corner and to sit down in an armchair and kneeled down. With her body shaking in anticipation, without another second she grabbed his swim trunks and pulled them to his ankles down, releasing a rock-hard 18-inch monster, causing the luchador to gasp in shock. She stood there for a moment, not believing her own eyes, telling her brain she must be seeing things, but what in front of her was Naruto's thick. It's fat and long and. Lisa was freighted by the large throbbing. Never in her life had she known something so big existed. I don't think he will fit inside of me. Naruto, you're a monster? She looked up at him perplexed. It's always been this way, I guess, he said, not sure really what his response should be. With it clearly throbbing painfully, he need to feel her lips. Want to taste it? Naruto said. Without question she lowered her head, his penis entering her mouth almost imminently. She felt unable to take more than the head. But she knew she could do better. She wrapped her mouth on the fat throbbing head, Naruto groaning as the dark-skinned woman's tight mouth engulfed his. The luchador's mouth was stretched so far, her cheeks bulging as she choked, gagged and coughed, trying her best to fit this monstrosity of a penis down her throat. Even with a few inches down her throat, she was having a hard time. With determination of an experienced luchador having taken down her enemies, Lisa dove onto Naruto's pole, trying her best to fit more inches inside her mouth. After much pursuit, she could only fit 12 inches down her gullet. She wanted to make the best impression for Naruto, but she felt saddened not being able to take Naruto's penis. She retreated from it slipping out of her throat. I can't fit down my throat. She worked with what she could take. Take what you can. She simply nodded and dove mouth first back onto his pole. She wouldn't back down. This was her challenge and she was to get it done. Her mouth stretched and unable to breathe, she stuffed his further down. Naruto, delirious with pleasure, becoming lost in what had to be haven as his was violently being sucked by the powerful luchador. Gaining engorgement, she began to work his like it was a life or death situation, making Naruto groan as her mouth worked his expertly. She grabbed the head of his, lifting it up and went down, playing with his massive balls. Sucking on one of the massive, double the size of her fist testicles in her mouth, filling it. She licked it lovingly and then switched to the other testicle, doing this for a few minutes, he never having his testicles being this treated lovingly. She gave a long lick which prompted Naruto to groan. Her lick started from the bottom all the way to the head, Lisa making sure she lingered ever so slightly on Naruto's fat, for an extra jolt of pleasure. Lisa, that's amazing. She smiled, knowing he was in a world of enjoyment. Her mouth began a fury, moving back and forth on 8 inches. Loud wet-sounding gags came from her throat as she worked Naruto's. By now tears of effort were streaming down her face while saliva ran from the corners of her mouth. She felt his pulse against the walls of her bulging throat. By now she knew that taking this entire was out of the question and had to only take 15 inches of his penis. With that though, her head began to fly back and forth over his. She worked sucking Naruto's for several glorious minutes. In that time, Naruto, knowing his orgasm, she could almost taste it. She worked his until he expanded his impending release. Go on, come, he stated as his swelled inside her, making her already stretched throat stretch further. He fired his blasts of thick cum. It was the most thick, large amount of cum she had ever swallowed. While it was the biggest helping she ever had to her, it tasted better than her favorite food. It quickly backed up in her, filling her stomach, shooting back up past her mouth. Large amounts of cum shot out of her nostrils as her stomach was filled. After minutes she released his, being greeted by another explosion of cum covering her upper body and face. This continued for several minutes as cum blasted her. Minutes went by and finally the young blonde fired his last large wade. Lisa made no waste of time cleaning the thick spunk from her body and swallowing it. With that she stood up and walked over to a desk, Naruto not taking his eyes off her. "You may do what you please with me, Naruto. I am yours and I want you to do everything to me." She had heard many things about Naruto and he was a stud in her eyes. "Me." She bent over the desk and shacked her for Naruto. He walked up behind her, his hovering near her little. His giant crown hovered against her plump lips, pushing up against her, dripping. Her slit witched as the much bigger began to spread her open. Naruto pushed his hips forward, causing her to scream in a mixture of pleasure and pain. His sliding into her small, hot quivering depths. It was driving Lisa crazy as his stretched her to the point of no return. Despite feeling almost uncomfortably full with Naruto's only a few inches inside, he thrusted deeper and Lisa couldn't help but feel pleasure run through her body. "You're too tight, Lisa," he said as he power in his thrusts Lisa further the entire time, Lisa now looking down, seeing her bulging belly to see just how far his was. Breathing became tougher and light started to flash in front of Lisa's eyes. She wasn't sure what was happening to her. She didn't know once he heard his being stuffed into her. "Coming." Lisa squealed so loudly that it came above Naruto's grunts before her legs started to twitch and buck and her back arched. After a few moments of her loving her orgasm, her body went slack, using all her strength just to stay standing. "Take it like a Lisa." Naruto grabbed her arms, thrusting faster. His body a blur as he the luchador into the desk. She screamed and screamed as the young man destroyed her tight. His pelvis slapped against her body as his smashed into her womb. Lisa's eyes widen as Naruto's throbbing in and out of her plump, bashing into her womb, leaking precum. His bashed against the back of her womb. Her eyes widen as she screamed around the massive pole of stuff down her. Still at this point he had 16 inches down her, only 2 more inches. He had a goal and he was going to fit his entire down. Her body was reaching that high the entire time. Naruto, it won't fit. Lisa's eyes watered as she felt her womb. "It will," he stated as he brought his back until only a few inches were in Lisa, then with all his power he thrust forward her womb, taking all 18 inches of Naruto's thick penis. "Me, I'm your," she screamed. His thrusts seemed to increase as he growled. Lewd wet sucking sounds and meaty splats resounded through the room, accompanied by her moans and the creaking of the bed. Naruto rammed his deep into her pink folds, Lisa being restlessly by Naruto. His body became a blur. Lisa felt her tighten as thick runnels of girlseum flowed from her climaxing cunny. Despite the orgasm ravaging her soft quivering body, Naruto didn't slow down. Instead she felt his speed hastened, furious thrust hit her, causing her to hit the desk with her body. "Lisa, go on, blow my load," he declared. "Do it deep inside of me." She screamed and he did it. It felt like the most thick spunk she ever filled her. It quickly filled her womb and poured out of her snatch in the gallons, covering the floor in a pool of cum. She couldn't believe the amount and how hot it was, making her womb burn from the heat, all the while her stomach became bloated, looking pregnant. He blasted thick spunk in her womb, filling her up. After minutes he slipped his penis out of her. His cum landed on her back. Thinking it was over, she was surprised to find herself lifted up into the air. Naruto's wrapped around her thighs. He sat down. "You're still hard," she yelled as he grunted as he lifted her up and slammed her down on his thick rod. "Baby, I can't go soft with your," he stated. "Oh, I can't take it," she screamed as hours went by being by this stamina-filled teenager. After a night with Lisa, Naruto awoke early, and not being able to sleep he quickly vacated Lisa's room and out into the vast mansion. Heading down the stairs and into the fresh air, he took a deep breath. The picturesque beach was just a simple trout away. The bright blue was calling to him. As his eyes were gleaming, he couldn't resist. It had been too long since Naruto had a good workout. With haste he raced down a path while throwing his shirt and pulling on his swimsuit with eagerness until he reached the beach and started walking along it to warm up before jogging. To his left, he could just see the sun awaking by the sea, coloring the sky in a bright mix of colors. It was low tide, which was the perfect time to run. As the sun was rising, the water was wetting his feet and was nice and cool. The beach was deserted and there was not a soul to be seen. His legs moved on their own and his breathing stabilized as he just ran. Naruto felt the peace and calm of this trance-like state wash over him, and all his worries slipped away for a moment. It was just him, the beach. While he was jogging, enjoying the wide coast, he suddenly heard running steps coming from behind. Turning his head back, he saw a gorgeous woman in a bikini with her hair in ox horns style and a buxom figure with thick thighs. She was jogging in a much quicker pace than his, catching up to him. "Hey, sorry if I snuck up on you," the woman said with a calm voice and a wide smile, decelerating her pace with Naruto. "No problem, I just wasn't expecting anyone to be out running at this hour," Naruto replied as the two ran together. It's the best way to stay in tip-top shape and no one to block your path." "Yeah, I guess that's true. I'm Chun Lee, by the way." "Naruto," he replied. She stared at him intrigued. "You're the new owner, right? The one that just arrived?" "Yup. That's me, brand new. Oh boy, you'll have a lot on your plate soon. So many women to please and places to be in such little time." "Yeah, I know. That's why I'm here, jogging, to prepare myself for it all." "Well, it's been a lonely morning. You are more than welcome to join me. That way you can continue looking at me," she decreed with a beautiful warm smile. Naruto thought to play along. "I will definitely do that. In fact, I can't stop looking at you." "I know," she said matter of fact, knowing how hot she is. It was mesmerizing to watch the fluidity of her movements. He could see the muscles in her back move beneath her tight black bikini top with every twist of her upper body as she brought one of her arms forward. Whenever her feet made contact with the sand, a slight ripple went up her thick-toned legs, making her huge firm butt jiggle just a little in her hot black bikini. It was clear that she was taking good care of her body. Her muscles were well-toned. Full, nice, flat belly. Nice warm casual smile on her pretty face. He joined her jogging. He was fascinated by her body freedom. She was in excellent shape and it squeezed his energy out of him to keep her pace. They continued jogging along the beach, getting further away from the mansion. His body and hers were perspiring the more they jogged, and the more their breathing got heavier. The jog took them across the extensive beach, and subsequently about an hour they came to stop. "You managed to keep up with me. Not bad," she said with a cheeky smile, watching the sweat run down his hard abs. Her eyes gazed over him, lingering for a second on his large arms, twisting down his strong pecs and abs. She traced the muscles that followed up his thighs. They looked hard. She felt her nipples rubbing against the fabric of her bikini. Her large puffy areolas and nipples got sensitive sometimes, but thankfully she was covered by her bikini. She shifted slightly a bit to maintain her modesty. "You're not bad yourself. You look like you've been running for a while." She grinned as she bounced back and forth, loving the sensation of a good workout. "Yup, every day. I can't miss it," she said with pep and not out of breath. "Let's walk to lower our pulse and then swim for a while." "Good idea," he replied. They continued talking for a while about running, work, the hot summer and their favorite food among other things. It turned out they had a lot in common, one thing being they loved to train and work out. The two slowly went down the beach with smiles on the perfect morning. "I'm so glad you decided to join me on my lonely routine. It's nice to have someone to talk with," she said with a bright smirk. "Of course. I wouldn't leave a girl like you." "A girl like me, huh?" She grinned mysteriously. "What kind of girl would you say I am then? Was this a trap? It sure felt like one." "Well, you're incredibly cute, for one," he said, hoping he was on the right track. Her eyes gave him zero clues, and he had no choice but to continue. You're a talented runner, funny. Do I need to continue? She had folded her arms beneath her massive tits and was grinning at him. I wouldn't mind if you did, she purred. You are charming and absolutely beautiful. She thought that was enough compliments for one day. Why thank you. You're a hunk yourself. Her eyes were twinkling over his muscles and she had a big smile on her face. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Apparently, he had picked correctly. She snuck a look again at the muscles of his thighs when she suddenly felt a tingling sensation shooting straight through her like an electric shock. She was looking at what could only have been a ridiculously large penis. It was the size that shocked her. It looked like an elephant trunk in his shorts and running down his leg. She quickly snapped her eyes back up. Oh my God, she thought. Her pulse quickened and her mind raced. I have never seen anything like that, she thought. He laughed, and suddenly she was staring at him. The moment didn't last long though, and they quickly fell into a continuation of their last conversation, talking about life and work and such. After a good walk they came to a stop, the warm waves splashing beneath them. There is no one here except us. I suggest you should swim. It feels so much more natural and you'll have a dry swimsuit for your way back. Chafing your inner thighs won't do you any good, she said, trying to remain calm for various reasons, looking deep into his eyes. He felt his stir at the idea, conjuring thoughts and excited at the same time. Here he had such a wonderful chance to experience with such an intriguing woman. He felt he should not skip that one. Without another word, Naruto took off his swimsuit, causing her to gasp. She was shocked, stunned to see his huge penis. It was tremendous. The head was larger than her fist. Her eyes trailed down the thick shaft, methodically counting inch after amazing thick, veiny inch. Her mouth began to water, despite herself. Eyes still going down the endless inches. When her view finally reached the root of all 18 inches, she was amazed at the obscene size of the grapefruit-sized testicles spilling abundantly out. She shuddered, imaging the volume of fertile ejaculate they were capable of producing. All of this caused her body to warm up unlike ever before, as her breath slowed. Chun Lee was so impressed she couldn't find proper words to communicate. Her burned even more wildly with desire as her nipples stiffened. Wow, you're really big, and you're big as eager. Yeah, that's what happens when I'm near a gorgeous babe. She smiled, then followed his lead and tossed her clothes to the sand. In no time she threw her clothes on the ground, revealing her special massive tits to bounce before the young teenager. She seemed to swallow the darkness around her and glowed with a fulfillment. The beauty shined from her as she smiled. For a moment he just stared at her body, taking in her nubile form and huge tits. With her womanly, hourglass figure, not to mention her beautiful glamorous face and hair. It was something otherworldly to Naruto. Utmost he lost himself in her beauty. Next thing he knew, she grabbed his hand and the couple ran diving into the beautiful warm water. They were enjoying the sea. At first, he felt strange to feel his manhood and his balls flowing with the water without restriction. It felt so nice and tingling, and his bashfulness was washed away with the water flow. She was right. It did feel so natural to be. He looked at her, who was swimming backstroke. Each time she raised her arms above her head to engulf the water. Her heavy were following her arms' movement. He was fascinated by the scenery. She closed the distance and the two were a foot away from the other. Her big eyes were staring at him in anticipation before he brought her closer and pressed his lips against hers. She eagerly returned the kiss, roaming a hand through his hair and pressing her body against him. Their bodies were on fire as her hands roamed over him. Quickly she grabbed him and they swam back to shore. Come on, I know a private place we can be together.